time to get into the Ronin SC2. And I know what you're thinking. What do I do with all of this? This doesn't gimbal, but it does. So let's get into it. First, we want to build the basic gimbal. There's an unlock knob right here. Let's loosen that. Lock the upper portion and the lower portion of the gimbal together and relock that down. From there, we can just do regular gimbal things. Just like the Ronin SC1 and many other gimbals, we're gonna have locks on all the different motors that allow them to spin freely. It's important to note whenever you're putting it up or traveling, you can lock these things down. But when you're setting it up, and especially when it's turned on, you're gonna leave everything unlocked, where you're gonna just wear those motors right on out. Okay, so let's get it unlocked. And just like with the Ronin SC1, and in fact many other gimbals, you're gonna wanna get the gimbal pretty close to home before you get going. That way when you're getting your camera on there and everything put together, it's not just a whole bunch of movements, a whole bunch of big movements. So I brought it up a little bit, I slid it over a little bit, and I pushed it forward just a little bit, just to get us kind of home. Now with this gimbal, you're gonna have a small plate that goes on your big plate. This is just a quick release plate into the big plate. So there's arrows on many of these things to make sure that you're going in the right direction when you put them on the gimbal. That arrow is typically, if not always, gonna point towards the front of the lens. So we're gonna get the little guy on, nice and tight. We're gonna slide the little guy into the big guy. Whoop, whoop. There we go. Now it's gonna have a little locking mechanism to make sure it doesn't fly all the way out. Lock it in there, and then use the lever to lock it back. Okay, now we're ready. Yep, yep, yep. This guy, there's a lot more balanceability than the Ronin SC1. So let's dive into it. So on the bottom part itself, got a lever here that controls this action. Got a lever here that tightens the plate. And then the rest of everything is going to be thumb screws to tighten and adjust. We're going to get this out here, get our camera in. Again, it's going to lock into place via button. Now, just like any other gimbal with lockers, we can get it locked into place. I mentioned in the Ronin SC1 guide to not just let go of it. That's why. Okay, we're gonna get her on there until we can, now we're all locked, everything's locked aside from our spinny base. Okay. Now I'm gonna get it to where it's not cascading so drastically forward. Kind of balance going that way. And again, we're gonna work our way from the plate to the left and right, to the up and down, to the left and right, to the forwards and backwards. So you're always starting at the camera, whatever's attached to the camera, and working your way back to the hand grip. It's just a general rule for 90% of gimbals. So now I'm gonna give the old flip test. And again, in theory, when it's balanced, we can put it anywhere and the camera stick right there. So now feel pretty good about what's going on up top. Now I can unlock my horizon. we're getting all crazy again. And it's a balance. We're gonna push it whichever way is the opposite direction it falls. So right now it's falling to my left. I'm gonna push it to the right. Never fully letting go like I did earlier, which was a big mistake. Oh, just a hair, just a hair. Okay, now tighten down my thumb screws. Now notice it's not going crazy in any one direction. So I should be able to put it just about anywhere and it stick there. Now, the last thing, whoa. The last thing we've got to do is balance the pan axis after I adjust and fix. Now we're talking making the tiniest adjustments on here. Okay, so again, just like before, there are multiple ways. I'm gonna lock all this. There's multiple ways we can check for the pan balance. Now there's two ways, really. So there's a pair of ways we can check. Can give it the old lean, which is gonna let us know that it's out of balance. Notice how it swings when I tilt it over. So it swung forwards, so it needs to come back. If we have it too far back and we tilt it over, it's gonna swing the opposite direction. Now this is a really easy and safe way to balance that arm. And you're just gonna keep doing that until she doesn't rock anymore. All right, so we stayed. Oof. Now, again, the method that I really like, that is often quicker, I feel, than giving it the old tilt. I'm gonna pull all the legs up. I'm gonna hold it upright, like so, and make sure it's balanced. If it's out of balance, just like any of the other axes, it'll swing one direction or the other. Right? Now, typically whenever I do this in a real world scenario, I'm holding it on a table, like so, and that way it's just not ripping through the air. Okay. Now we're balanced. From here, we're gonna open up the Ronin app and we're gonna make sure that the motor parameters are correct. Meaning that this gimbal may get used on a Sony camera or a Canon camera, maybe a bigger Canon camera, maybe a smaller Canon camera, and vice versa for the Sonys. So I want to make sure that the motors are properly tuned in here. If they're not properly tuned or it's not properly balanced over time, you're going to put a lot of extra strain and wear on those motors. So I'm going to go to the Ronin app. I was just in here for another gimbal. It's going to ask me to connect. It's the only one that's open. On the off chance it asks you for a password, it's probably just going to be 1 through 8. Just the generic password that comes with it. So from here, I'm going to go to motor parameter and test. Yeah, I want to test it. Oh, let's do this backwards again. And it's going to do a dance. At this time, you could play some salsa music. You could play some EDM. You could play some like really smooth jazz. Now that horrible sound you heard was from this thumb screw not being tightened down all the way. Tighten your screws, don't lose your shoes. That's how you balance the Ronin 2s.